In the late 1800s, in the wide and rugged lands of the American Southwest, three Apache girls walked slowly along a dusty trail. The sun was high, beating down on the dry earth, and the wind whispered across the open plains. They had been traveling for days, unsure of where to go or who to trust. Each step felt heavy, but they kept moving forward together. These three girls were not just sisters in blood, they were sisters in spirit. They had survived hardships that many could not imagine, and they relied on each other to stay strong. The eldest, named Nayeli, was quiet and thoughtful. Her eyes held stories of loss, courage, and determination. She often looked over her shoulder, wary of strangers, but she carried herself with confidence. The middle sister, Ayoka, was sharp and alert. She noticed every movement in the distance, every sound of animals, and every shift in the wind. The youngest, Tyanita, had a gentle heart. She was kind, soft-spoken, and cared deeply for her sister's well-being. Despite their differences, together they formed a team that nothing could easily break. As they neared a stretch of green that stood out against the dusty plains, they noticed a ranch in the distance. Smoke rose from a chimney, and the lowing of cattle could be heard faintly. Their stomachs rumbled at the sight. They had eaten little in the past few days, and the promise of water and food felt like a dream. Yet they hesitated. They had heard many stories of people who would not welcome them, and they knew that asking for help could be dangerous. Still, hunger and exhaustion pushed them forward. They approached the wooden fence that surrounded the ranch. Behind it, a man worked with a pair of horses. He was tall, strong, and wore a wide-brimmed hat that shaded his face. His movements were precise, showing years of experience, and the girls could see the muscles in his arms tense and relax with every task. This man was the rancher, known to the local settlers as Mr. Jameson. He had built this ranch with his own hands, working from sunrise to sunset, and he valued hard work above all else. The girls paused a few feet away from the fence. Nayeli took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Please," she said, her voice soft but steady. "We are hungry and have nowhere to go. Can you let us stay even for a little while?" Ayoka and Tyanita stood behind her, nodding silently. The rancher froze, surprised by their sudden appearance and their direct words. He had encountered travelers before, but three young Apache girls asking for shelter was unusual. He studied them closely, noticing their worn clothes, their tired faces, and the careful way they held themselves. "Why should I let you stay?" he asked finally, his voice firm but not unkind. "I don't know you, and I don't know if I can trust you." Nayeli's eyes met his. "We do not ask for much," she said. "We can work. We can cook, clean, and help with your animals. We just need a place to live. Without someone to guide us, we are lost. We cannot live alone anymore." There was honesty in her voice, and Jameson could see the truth in her eyes. They were not asking for handouts. They were offering themselves, their labor, and their loyalty. Jameson paused. He had always been a cautious man, but he was not without compassion. He knew the life of the Apache people was hard, especially for children who had lost their families. He could not imagine what these girls had endured to survive this long. After a long moment of thought, he nodded. "All right," he said. "You can stay, but you must follow my rules. You will work hard and you will do exactly as I say. In return, you will have food, shelter, and safety. Do you understand?" The girls nodded eagerly, relief washing over their faces. Tyanita's eyes filled with tears, and she quickly blinked them away. Ayoka smiled faintly, but the tightness in her jaw showed she still carried some fear. Nayeli took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. "We will do our best," she said. "Thank you." From that day forward, the girls began their life on the ranch. The work was not easy. They woke before sunrise and spent long hours tending to the animals, gathering firewood, cleaning the house, and helping in the fields. Nayeli learned to milk the cows and feed the chickens. Ayoka discovered she had a talent for noticing when the horses were sick or uneasy, and she quickly gained Jameson's trust in handling them. Tyanita took care of the house, cooking simple meals, mending clothes, and keeping the home tidy. At first, Jameson watched them closely, correcting mistakes and guiding them patiently. Sometimes he would raise his voice when he saw carelessness, but more often he simply observed. He noticed how they adapted quickly, how they learned from their errors, and how they never complained. The more he watched, the more he respected them. Their determination reminded him of the early days of building his ranch, when he had faced hardships alone and had learned to persevere. Evenings were a different time. After the work was done, the girls would gather near the fire, sharing stories of their past. They spoke of their families, their village, and the teachings they had learned from their elders. They talked about Apache customs, the importance of bravery, respect for the land, and the bonds between people. Jameson, initially reluctant, began to listen quietly. He found himself intrigued by their words, learning things he had never known. The bond between the girls and the rancher grew slowly. Jameson began to treat them not just as workers but as family. He offered advice, shared stories of his own youth, and even taught them some practical skills like reading simple maps and recognizing plants that could be used for medicine. The girls, in turn, shared their knowledge of the land, showing him where wild herbs grew and how to spot signs of approaching weather. Despite the growing sense of trust, life on the ranch was not without challenges. The wider community was suspicious. Neighbors whispered about the 3 Apache girls living on the ranch. Some worried that conflicts might arise or that trouble would follow. The girls could feel the eyes of others when they ventured into town, the quiet judgment and curiosity. Yet they refused to let fear control them. They were determined to show that they could live respectfully, work diligently, and honor the trust Jameson had placed in them. Through each challenge, the girls grew stronger. They learned to rely not just on Jameson but on one another. Naomi would guide her sisters in difficult tasks. Ahyoka would watch for danger, alerting the others when trouble seemed near. Tyanita would comfort them when they were tired or discouraged. Together, they created a rhythm of life that balanced hard work with support and care. By the end of the first few months, the girls had become skilled and reliable. Jameson's initial caution faded into quiet admiration. He often found himself smiling at their small triumphs: a successfully milked cow, a cleanly swept barn, a dish cooked just right. More importantly, he noticed how they had begun to laugh together, how they had made the ranch feel alive with energy and warmth. What had started as an arrangement born of necessity was slowly turning into a genuine connection, a family forged by circumstance and mutual respect. The girls, for their part, were beginning to feel a sense of safety they had never known. They had a place to sleep, food in their bellies, and someone to look out for them. The fear that had once followed them like a shadow began to lift. They realized that they had found more than a home. They had found someone who believed in them, who gave them a chance to thrive in a world that often overlooked or misunderstood them. Yet, even in this growing peace, the girls never forgot the challenges they had faced before arriving at the ranch. They remembered the hunger, the fear, and the loneliness. Those memories kept them humble, motivated, and deeply grateful for the opportunity they had been given. Each day was a chance to repay Jameson for his kindness, not just with labor, but with loyalty, respect, and care. As the sun set on the plains each evening, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, the girls would sit together outside the ranch house. They watched the cattle settle for the night and listened to the distant sounds of coyotes howling. There, under the wide-open sky, they shared dreams and hopes for the future. Naomi dreamed of learning to read and write. Ahyoka imagined a life where she could care for animals with skill and knowledge. And Tyanita simply wanted to see her sisters safe and happy. The arrival of these 3 Apache girls had changed the ranch in ways no one could have predicted. Through patience, work, and mutual respect, they had begun to build not only a home but a bond that bridged cultures and generations. The story of their first days on the ranch was one of courage, hope, and resilience, a beginning that promised a brighter future, even in the harsh, wild lands of the American Southwest. As the seasons changed, the Apache girls became a steady, vital part of the ranch. They had learned the rhythm of the land, the language of the animals, and the patterns of daily work. Naomi, Ahyoka, and Tyanita no longer felt like outsiders. They had a place to belong. Each girl had found her own role, a way to contribute meaningfully to the ranch and to the life of the man who had taken them in. Naomi, the eldest, showed remarkable patience and leadership. She managed the care of the cattle, checking on the animals each morning and evening. She learned to recognize signs of illness or distress, and developed a careful hand in treating minor wounds. Jameson often watched her with quiet pride, noticing how she carried herself with calm confidence and respect for the land. Naomi's sense of responsibility extended beyond the animals. She often guided her younger sisters in difficult tasks, teaching them to approach work with care and diligence. Ahyoka, sharp-eyed and alert, found her strength in observation. She could spot a stray animal, a broken fence, or even approaching travelers from a distance. Her ability to read the land and the sky became invaluable to Jameson, who relied on her instincts more than he expected. She also helped with the fields, planting crops, watering and harvesting with skill that grew every day. While she could be stubborn at times, her determination and courage were admired by both the girls and the rancher. Tayanita, the youngest, brought a sense of warmth to the household. She cared for the kitchen, preparing meals for everyone, and kept the ranch house tidy and welcoming. She had a natural empathy that allowed her to comfort the animals when they were frightened, and her sisters when they were tired or discouraged. Tayanita's gentle presence reminded everyone that life on the ranch was not just about work. It was about care, connection, and creating a home. Life was not without its difficulties. Harsh weather tested their resolve with scorching summers and cold winters. A sudden storm once washed out part of the fields, leaving the girls exhausted from hours of repair work. Yet each challenge only strengthened their bond. They learned to depend on one another, to lift each other up when fear or frustration threatened to take over. Jameson, too, grew through these hardships. He began to see that leadership was not just about rules and strength. It was about understanding, patience, and guiding others with respect. As months passed, the community around the ranch began to notice the changes. Neighbors who had once been suspicious started to respect the work the girls were doing. They saw that the ranch was thriving, not just because of Jameson's skill, but because of the dedication and talent of Nayeli, Ayoka, and Tayanita. Children in the area would sometimes watch the girls at work, curious and admiring. Slowly, the whispers of doubt turned into stories of admiration. The girls had proven that they were trustworthy, hardworking, and capable, bridging a gap between cultures that had often been filled with fear and misunderstanding. Despite their growing acceptance, the girls never lost sight of the struggles that had brought them here. They remembered the long journeys, the hunger, and the loneliness. These memories fueled their determination to make the most of the opportunity they had been given. They understood that safety and comfort were precious, and they treated their new home and the rancher with deep respect. In return, Jameson treated them not just as workers but as family. He shared his knowledge, taught them practical skills, and sometimes, on quiet evenings, spoke of his own youth and dreams. Evenings on the ranch were a time of reflection and connection. The girls would gather by the fire after a long day, sharing stories, songs, and laughter. They spoke of their culture, the Apache traditions they cherished, and the hopes they held for the future. Jameson would listen, learning from their experiences and sometimes offering his own perspective. In these moments, the boundaries between teacher and student, guardian and dependent began to blur. They were more than a rancher and 3 young girls. They were a family connected by trust, respect, and shared experience. The girls also began to dream. Nayeli imagined learning to read and write, to explore knowledge beyond the ranch. Ayoka pictured herself caring for animals with skill and confidence, perhaps even teaching others what she had learned. Tayanita, ever gentle, dreamed of a future where her family could remain safe and happy, where they could continue to live in harmony with the land. These dreams, once distant and almost impossible, now felt achievable because of the foundation they had found at the ranch. One morning, a neighboring rancher approached Jameson. He had heard stories about the 3 Apache girls and wanted to see for himself. What he found surprised him. The ranch was orderly, the animals healthy, and the girls moving with confidence and purpose. Nayeli calmly explained how she managed the cattle. Ayoka demonstrated her knowledge of the land, and Tayanita proudly showed the neatness of the house and kitchen. The neighbor left with admiration, spreading word of the girls' dedication and skill throughout the region. As the seasons passed, the ranch flourished. Jameson's work was easier because he no longer carried the burden alone. The girls' presence brought efficiency, care, and joy. They celebrated small victories together. Successful harvests, a new calf born, repairs completed before a storm, and each celebration strengthened their bond. The ranch was no longer just a workplace. It was a home filled with laughter, warmth, and the sense of belonging the girls had longed for. Beyond work and survival, life on the ranch offered moments of wonder. On clear nights, the girls would lay on the soft grass looking up at the stars. They talked about the vastness of the sky, the stories of constellations, and the dreams they hoped to achieve. Jameson sometimes joined them, pointing out the northern star or telling tales from his own past. These quiet moments, simple yet profound, reminded them all that life was more than chores and labor. It was about connection, hope, and the beauty of the world around them. Through all their days, the girls never forgot the importance of gratitude. They worked hard not just because they were expected to, but because they understood the value of kindness shown to them. They cared for the ranch, for Jameson, and for each other in ways that went beyond duty. And Jameson, in turn, understood that generosity was not simply giving food and shelter. It was fostering trust, encouragement, and respect for those in his care. By the end of the first year, a remarkable transformation had taken place. The three Apache girls, who had arrived tired, hungry, and uncertain, had grown into confident, skilled, and respected young women. Jameson, the man who had once lived alone, had found companionship, joy, and a sense of family he had not experienced in years. Together, they had created a home in the wild lands of the Southwest, overcoming fear, prejudice, and hardship. The story of Naili, Ahyoka, and Tayanita became known in the surrounding towns. People spoke of the girls' courage, work ethic, and loyalty, and of the rancher who had opened his home to them. It was a story not just of survival but of trust, respect, and the power of human connection. It showed that family could be formed through choice, care, and shared experience, not only through blood. As the sun set over the plains one evening, painting the sky with shades of gold and crimson, the girls and Jameson sat together outside the ranch house. They watched the cattle settle for the night and listened to the soft sounds of the wind through the grass. Naeli, Ahyoka, and Tayanita shared a quiet smile, feeling the safety and belonging they had longed for. Jameson looked at them with pride, knowing that his life had been changed in ways he never expected. The ranch, once a solitary place of work, had become a home filled with laughter, learning, and love. The girls had found a place to belong, and Jameson had found a family he never knew he needed. Through patience, courage, and mutual respect, they had turned uncertainty into hope and survival into a thriving life. Their journey was a reminder that even in the harshest, wildest landscapes, connection, trust, and care could create something lasting and beautiful. Together, they faced the challenges of the frontier, celebrated its joys, and built a future where they belonged, proving that even in a world filled with hardship, kindness, perseverance, and love could create a home for anyone willing to work for it. And in the quiet, golden light of each day's end, they knew that they had truly found what they had been searching for all along: a place to live, a place to belong, and a family forged through trust, loyalty, and hope.